Hey everyone, and welcome to KPC Underground. This is the podcast we do from right underneath our stage here at Kirkland Performance Center in Kirkland, Washington, just outside Seattle, if you're new to, Washington, the Washington area. And today I'm very excited to be sitting down with Rose Yurcina. She is a local actor and grew up in the Snohomish area and has lived in Texas for the past several years, but is back now to do the starring role, Maria, in our community musical here at KPC, The Sound of Music. Ever heard of it? It's a popular one.
It is.
Yeah. And so really excited to talk with Rose today just about her process in acting, her experience, and why community theater is important and things like that. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Rose actually reached out to me after seeing a social media post and was like, hey, that podcast looks cool. Maybe you could do something on the musical. And I was like, absolutely, let's totally do it. So that's your cue out there. If you want to be on one of these podcasts, just reach out. It might be you next, sitting in the seat. So it's
you
amazing.
Never know.
Just like that, yeah. So yeah, thanks again for being here. You've been an actor. I mean, did you grow up doing acting, like as a child and things like that?
I did a little bit, like
Yeah.
school productions. You
Yeah.
know, I got to play Sister Bear in my elementary school production. Things like that.
Right.
I was really a singer growing up. So I was really into choir, and I went to school. I went to college for music at Central Washington University. Go
Okay.
Wildcats.
Okay.
And then sort of transitioned from more of that classical music into musical theater
Right.
after college, which I just sort of found was what I love doing.
Right. Okay, so after college, I loved musicals and everything growing up. I'm a musician as well as like a technical person. Never really did much in the theater space, but yes, as a child, I remember playing Rumpelstiltskin and other.
Right. Yeah, it's a classic, right?
It's interesting when you're a child, and we do have, obviously children are prominently featured in this show. What do you remember about that as a kid, I guess, and what is it like for kids to experience theater, especially doing theater not only with other kids but with adults too, and how do you see that as beneficial to young kids coming up?
Oh my gosh, I just think it's so special to get to be in a community theater production as a kid, because it's one thing when you're doing school productions and you're all with all your peers and everything, that's really fun. But when you're a kid and you get to do a show with adults, many of whom are professional actors, it
Right.
makes you really feel like, wow, like this is really special. I'm a part of this cast, and it's almost like you're a colleague because you're working together. And so it's not more of that sort of like student teacher thing, or it's really like, wow, like I'm an important piece of this, and I'm just as important as the grown-ups in this show.
Right.
And we're all working hard. We're all working and practicing and building our talents to put on this great show together.
Right. Do you see that then as, community theater is obviously theater that's done mostly with the participation of a local community, typically not paid. We can go all into that, but that's correct, right? Like,
Yeah.
From I don't know if the directors and people some people behind the scenes obviously are being paid, but as far as the actors and the company, it's all just people volunteering and just people who want to be a part of it. Is that correct?
Right, yes. Most community theater productions are like that, where there will be a budget, and of course there is money because it's expensive to put on theater.
Yeah.
And so typically there are production team members that are paid, or band members that are paid, but most of the time in community theaters, not always, but most of the time, the actors, the performers on stage are doing it because they love doing it.
Right.
And they just want to do that show. So oftentimes you'll get in a community theater production like this one, you'll get people who are professional actors that do get
Right.
paid for what they do, but oh man, I really wanted to do The Sound of Music, or that.
Right.
So you get people that do it for the love of that particular show, or for the particular community. They love working with that director. They love working with that music director. They love the venue. And so people will come back and do community shows just because there's a joy attached to it. And the experience is just, there's just memories being built, and it's worth it.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Community theater, you can see it as sort of maybe it's a path from school shows and things to more professional work. But me as a musician, I like to say I'm an amateur musician because the word amateur means for the love. You do it. That's why you do it.
Right.
So whether I'm being paid or not, that's kind of why I want to do it, and so here's to amateur actors out there too, people who do it for the love. And I think there's a I guess it uncomplicates it maybe a little bit, doesn't it, when everyone's kind of on the same foot. We're like, we're all here because we actually want to be here,
right.
Versus like, how much is this person getting paid versus what I'm getting paid and things. So
the other special thing about it too is that it opens up, what's nice is it opens up theater for people that maybe have other professional careers. So there are a lot of people that are coming to our rehearsals from 7 to 10 and then they're going to bed and they're waking up at 6 a.m. to go to the day job.
Sure.
But some of them have day jobs that they love, right? So we have all these different things. So community theater allows people to be involved in lots of different things that they care about and are passionate about, or when they have families. I have a 3-year-old daughter at home, and so like it's one of those things where it's like the schedule is built around people that have other things going on in their lives, and so you get to put together this really great, solid show. But it's not one of those things where oftentimes in a community or a professional theater, it said, okay, here's our schedule. You aren't allowed to have any conflicts. You aren't allowed to, like, I need you for these 6 months or whatever.
This is your contract.
This is priority number one. Right. And so many people in the world don't have that, there's like, okay, well, that doesn't work for me.
Most people don't.
Yeah, most people don't. Right. And so this is a great, that's why I think community theater is important, and it can be done at a very, very high level because it's usually done by people that are really good at juggling multiple priorities, that are doing it because they love it and they're really passionate about it and they're going to give everything to that production.
Right.
But, it fits into their lives.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So the sound of music, let's talk about this. I mean, an enduring classic. What is it about this show? Obviously, many people have seen the movie. What is it about this material that is so, that has such longevity? And why is this story still compelling to people to watch and listen to, do you think?
Right. Well, I think so many of us have such magical memories of seeing the movie growing up. I mean, Julie Andrews she's Julie Andrews. I mean, come on, right? And she does such vibrancy and joy in every production that she's ever done. Yeah. And so there's something just so magical about that, and we just see the joy of the characters.
Right.
Also, the music. The music is so catchy.
Yeah.
So as I've been kind of rehearsing with my 3-year-old daughter around, she's been picking up on all of them, and she's been singing Do Re Mi endlessly, right?
Of course.
And it's so cute, but it makes me realize how catchy the songs are and just how attached to them we get. It's actually, I've always Edelweiss, which is a pretty popular number from the show, that the captain actually sings in the production, but that's always been my nighttime song, goodnight song to my daughter ever since she was a baby.
Right.
And everybody, so many people, if you ask them, especially people in the production, I was talking to Ross, who is playing our Max in this production, and he was saying the same thing, just these magical memories of the movie, of the film growing up, and just how it sort of sticks with you.
Sure. And, on top of that, the fact that the Von Trapp family was an actual family. This is a real story. Obviously, it's fictionalized, in certain parts or whatever, and things are changed. But and I think not only was it a true story, but it's not just a fluff piece that you go and see some happily ever after thing. There are some pretty intense themes, obviously during a tumultuous time and it's set in a tumultuous time in our country's history, and the story of someone, and people who sort of stood up to that, is sort of the subplot, if you will, of this show. And so, I can remember I watched it late. I remember watching it sort of as an adult. I didn't really watch it till I was an adult, and I was like, oh wow, this is great. This is amazing. This is a beautiful movie. And so anyway, all that to say, I think people, it's enduring for a reason. It's not one of those problematic shows that you look back on and sometimes, I think I saw a production of, I'm not going to say the name of it, but one of those, during same era, sort of productions, and I was watching it, I was like, oh gosh, this is there's things that are that don't really translate quite as well maybe to a modern audience, but this one sure does. Is there anything about the stage version of the show versus, because obviously most people's recollection is the musical,
right?
And is the stage version pretty much faithful to that, or are there differences there?
Sure. Well, the stage version came first,
okay,
and so that. It was, and then they did do some rewriting for the film version, which is very common because things don't always translate the same way.
Yeah.
So there are some musical differences. There are actually a couple musical numbers that are not in the movie that you might not recognize if you've never seen the stage play. They're actually really delightful, wonderful. There's also some numbers that are out of order. So, for instance, my favorite things, Raindrops on Roses, that one, comes in a different spot in the stage play than it does in the movie. And so you might kind of sit in the audience and go, wait a minute.
They changed it,
Right, this isn't where this song goes. So there are a couple moments like that are, and it's actually pretty fun because there are different characters that get to be featured by that. And so there are characters, I think, actually in the stage version that you get to see a little bit more development and get to see some more sides of them that you don't see in the film, which I think is fun. So yeah, there are definitely surprises, although the story is the same. There's no sort of shocking surprise ending you didn't expect. You're going to get what you love out of that.
The Nazis win in this one.
There's nothing like that. No, the children are still adorable. The children still sing. It's
You mentioned Julie Andrews. What about Maria? How about the character of Maria, who you're playing? What do you love about that character?
Oh my goodness, she is so funny. The funny thing about Maria is that she's got this energy and this joy, and she's got this passion. She's got this passion for this place where she grew up, Austria, which is one of the themes of the movie, this love of like your homeland. She has a passion for music. She loves music. She loves the children that she, becomes a mother to. It's all of that passion, and she has a hard time sometimes with self-control, and sometimes things just come out of her mouth before she kind of has a chance to think about them. And so it's fun to kind of watch that come out and play with that sort of like, oh, but I really want to say this. I'm going to say it. No, I shouldn't have said that. Right? Like she has a lot of moments like that, and she gets caught kind of in this love triangle, this accidental love triangle.
Right.
And trying to balance her sort of love of God and this dedication, this commitment she's made in her life to falling in love, and what does that mean, and what is she supposed to do with her life? So it's fun to watch her kind of stumble through all of this and find herself and find kind of what she's willing to stand up for and what she cares about and what her like true loves are in life.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So obviously we know the characters really well of the story. What can you talk a little bit about? Because one of the things we like to do on this podcast is talk about education. And for those who have not been involved, maybe in a theater production, who else besides the actors and maybe people know the director? Who else makes a show like this happen, and who are some of those people? What are some of those roles behind the scenes, and who are some of those people on this production helping to make it happen? Awesome.
So there's a whole team behind the scenes that usually you don't get to see. So of course, there's the director. We also always have
just to jump in, what does the director actually do? Are they telling the actors say it this way? Are they putting people in different places throughout the stage, or what is their job? What's the job of a director?
Sure. Actually, our director kind of described it as middle management in a way, because you also, on top of that, you have producers, right?
Yes.
So our producers for this show are KPC and Studio East, who are joint producing this show. They're putting it on. They've provided the space. They've provided the funding, to pay for the licenses for the music and the show and all of that.
A little bit more big picture.
Yeah, the big picture.
People.
The director is in charge of getting the show from, zero, like an idea, to actually okay, it's opening night, the show is ready. So the director handles casting, right? So auditions, helps, is typically the person that is making the final decisions on who to cast. The director blocks the show, meaning that when we have the script in hand, he says, okay, you go here, and you go here, there. The director coordinates set design. So the director says, this is my vision. I want these backdrops. I want this furniture here, here, and here. These are the set changes. How are we going to get them done? So all of those logistics. So where actors go, where set pieces go, what the set and the stage look like.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it. And also, like the acting vision, right? And so, oh, well, maybe try that. Can you try that line again but make it more like this, or try
Angrier
this.
Or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's also like actor coaching in a way too,
Sure.
and bringing out those characters, helping the actors as we rehearse, bring out our characters and find those emotions,
Right.
and find ways to share the story with the audience better.
Right.
So
and different
big
directors
role.
have different styles too.
Oh, yeah.
Some are. I know this a little bit from the music world. Really, it's the producer role if you're producing an album, which I do. That's kind of my background is producing records in the studio. That's the producer roles.
Right.
Is the director
That's
on a film.
true. That's very similar.
So but yeah, I mean, there are some producers in music who are very heavy-handed, who are like, almost you could maybe see like a Wes Anderson type of film director where it has to be exactly this way, and the actors are basically there to just kind of do what the director says. And then there are those who hold it a little more loosely, let the actors kind of interpret a little bit, even ad-lib, a little bit sometimes or whatever. Obviously, less ad-libs in a show, like in a classic show
Right.
like this. We don't want to be ad-libbing Raindrops on Roses or anything.
No.
But yeah, so all that to say, different directors have different styles, and how has it been working with this director? Don't worry, I won't tell them.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to shout out to Sam because he's an amazing director,
Okay,
and
yeah.
everybody. I mean, I've only heard good things, and I've only have good experiences. He's been great, so it's just, I can tell he has a very clear vision for the show.
Yep.
He wants to stay true to the material. He wants it to be delightful for the audience, to bring everything you would expect from a production of The Sound of Music, but lets us really dive into the characters and really wants us to
Right.
feel those emotional connections and find the impactful moments. Because like you said, there are lots of light, fun moments in this show.
Yeah.
And the children are wonderful, but there are also there's heavy material. And we're talking about, what do you do? Do you stand up when things are, in the face of evil? Or do you sort of go along because you're afraid?
Right.
And so there are some real serious themes in the show. And how do we bring that out? And how do you layer it in a way that it pulls the audience into the story and they kind of feel those things, but it's not too heavy, it's not too light, it's a balance. Yeah.
Okay, so we got the director. Who
Right.
who else makes the show happen?
Oh, so the music director in a musical is very important.
Okay.
So the music director is another member of the production team that also is working, from day one, works with casting the show, all of that. Teaches us all of the music. So the music director is in charge of teaching the music to the cast, is in
Right.
charge of forming the band, rehearsing the band, getting the band ready to perform with the actors, and then conducting the show once the show opens.
Yeah.
So a huge role in a musical,
Right.
very, very important.
And that person is typically we are in the orchestra pit right now
Right,
of,
we
the,
are,
of, the,
yeah.
of the show, which I have to clear this out before the actual show happens. I'm planning on airing this the Monday before the show opens, so hopefully
cool.
this will air, and then you can go see the show this weekend or next. I think it's playing for 2 weekends,
Right.
At KPC March 3rd through 12th. So get your tickets now. There's matinees, there's weekend night performances, and so they are selling. I keep an eye on tickets that are selling here, and
Right.
it is selling now, and so it will likely, several of the shows will likely sell out, so be sure to get your tickets now. But that music director, all that to say, we typically actually build a platform. I don't know if we will for this show or not, but we build a platform here, and then take out these upper stage pieces so the music director can be seen by the actors on the stage.
So we're actually
We may or may
keeping
not,
them
but-
this show.
So yeah.
And we will be watching on video
On the camera
right?
feed,
Yeah,
yes.
so we'll see his face on the monitor
Yes.
in the back of the theater,
Right.
and we will watch that conducting. So he
Right.
will be below us and hearing us thumping around on stage, right? To
Right.
footsteps
It's
right
loud.
above him.
It is
yeah,
loud
I
up
bet
there.
it is.
Yeah, but they'll have a full orchestra, band down here playing all the music live, and then obviously mic'd up down here, and pumped through monitors, and so the actors can hear. And then, as Rose said, we have a camera feed. One of our recent upgrades here that yours truly is responsible for. We have a camera that's on the conductor so the actors can see and know when they come in and things like that. So
and that's actually I think
it's a cool system.
The direction a lot of theaters are going, and even on Broadway you see that happening. And I've even heard of pits that are actually in separate buildings and separate spaces, right? And it's all because the technology is so great. And it's just, and some of those old theaters are just not big.
Right.
So if you need a full band, I've heard of bands actually on Broadway. I wish I could remember which show, but they were like 2 separate rooms. And so you have a conductor and assistant conductor, and they had separate instruments in different rooms, and they're putting it all together.
And there's TV monitors. Different, I mean, I follow the guy who plays drums for The Lion King, or has for the past many years. He's a studio guy too. His name's escaping me right now, but he showed this is Broadway, this is The Lion King, and he has the tiniest little, I mean, it's like it's cramped quarters down there. That's just kind of the nature of the of the biz,
of pit playing. This is actually pretty roomy.
It's I mean, this is maybe I don't know. Would you say 30, 40 feet one way?
This is a pretty big
by like
pit.
15, maybe the other way. And people come down. I actually had one person come down here. I was like, well, this is where the orchestra is. And they looked at the back wall and they said, okay, so this wall comes down and then the orchestra's back. I'm like, no.
No, they're
You're
here.
Looking at it. This is it.
This is the orchestra.
They occupy this is the space.
But it's not typically an orchestra the size of what you would see if you went to see the Seattle Symphony, right? And you also oftentimes with pit players will have multiple instruments. So you'll have like a reed player that will play flute and clarinet and saxophone. And so they've just got their various instruments and they pick them up as they go for whatever song. So oftentimes in a pit orchestra, you get people that are playing several instruments or covering lots of different parts at once because there's not enough room for a full orchestra.
Or someone on a keyboard playing some horns or
absolutely.
what have you. Yeah. So, but they make it work, and it ends up being lots of fun. Obviously, to have that live interaction is really fun as well, and it's a challenge, to pull off. It's a big production when these productions come through. So. We're happy to have them. I have to clear out my space.
Sorry
for that, which is why I'm trying to front load some of these podcasts. But which is all good. But so we've got the music director and we've got the director, and I hope you don't have to go or anything anytime soon. Okay,
I'm good. We're good.
I'm keeping you longer than I thought. It's just interesting to me.
I know.
And like I said, we love to nerd out on education here, and some people may or may not know all of the things that go into a place. We've got the director, the music director. Who else makes the show happen?
So a choreographer is typically common for a musical production. Is they're teaching the dances, they're envisioning the dances, come up with the dances. It's usually original choreography, right? It's not, hey, I'm going to watch like this video on YouTube and we're going to do it just like that. That's not what a choreographer does. A choreographer actually is designing dances, so it's a very creative process. Our director is actually also choreographing our show. So you find in theater very commonly people that are multi-talented, right? That can do multiple jobs. So that will happen pretty commonly. And so he's doing both. And then we also have a dance captain. And so the dance captain is actually a cast member. Her name is Stephanie. She's delightful. And so she's in charge of kind of assisting the choreographer. So she learns everybody's dances. Right. So she knows not just like what she's supposed to do in the show, but she learns the dance choreography for everybody and has notes and helps us rehearse or review, or we can go to her if we're like, I can't remember and the choreographer's busy. So that's very common. Almost every show will have a dance captain who's in charge so that if the choreographer's not there, there's somebody available to teach, cover things, fix lines if we're messy, just sort of clean things up and help us get the show so it's looking the best as possible.
Sure. Okay. So choreographer and dance captain, and then who else behind the scenes?
So, and again, this is different for every show. Oftentimes there's a technical director, so that will be the person in charge of like the sets and the lighting design and the sound. And typically then there are also often a sound designer and a lighting designer, separate people that do those specific jobs.
Not necessarily the person running those, but the person who is conceptualizing what light should go on in cooperation with the director, I imagine. Like what color should the lights be in the scene?
Right.
I want this to look like a warm summer day or whatever it is.
And that's also a good point that it's so collaborative. There's so much of this that kind of overlaps that it's like, hey, you need both people working together or 3 people working together to figure out how to make something work the best.
Right.
And so like that would be a very good example is the director would be like, how do we make this work? Because I want to really see these people here, and then I want it to kind of fade, and then I want to see this person over here. Right. And there's lots of sort of collaborating and like, okay, I have an idea on that and how to figure out the colors, what colors look great. Like if there's hey, it's supposed to be kind of dusk now, or it's supposed to be dawn, or it's the middle of the day, or it's a rainy night. How do you do all that? Everybody knows there's a thunderstorm in this show, right? It's very popular, the thunderstorm in The Sound of Music. So how do you create those things? Another really important job is the stage manager.
Yep.
And the stage manager is kind of the person that's really in charge, and everyone in theater knows this. They are the ones that sort of wrangle the cast, coordinate between the cast and the director, make sure like, okay, so we need a bookcase here. Okay, got it. I'll write that note down and send it to this person. And they're just the coordinator. They're pretty much the project manager, really.
Making stuff happen.
Of a production. Yeah. And then also, most often, and we do have one also, an assistant stage manager who is assisting with that as well. Usually in a show production, once the show goes up, you have a stage manager that would be in the booth, helping run things, coordinating the lighting, sound, all the cues. And then you'll have an assistant stage manager backstage who's helping wrangle actors, right?
Yeah.
You got to go on there.
People.
Where's this? I'm missing a set piece. Somebody's like lost their prop, like handling that stuff backstage.
That's quite a job too, because it's hard enough. Like we put on a lot of like, band shows here. It's hard enough finding the band. It's like before.
That's hard enough finding.
It's one of the hardest things. You wouldn't think.
Well, it's such a cool part of downtown Kirkland. I'm sure they disappear.
Oh yeah, they disappear. They do sound check, and then it's like, where is the band? It's 7:00. I have one person from they're like, okay, should we do the lights? And nope, band isn't here. Okay, where are they? Don't know. They like, come in. They come in 5 minutes later. They wander back in. So I can't imagine on a theatrical production with how many people in the cast on this?
Oh my goodness! I wish I could tell you. I can't even remember. It's
ballpark.
I feel like 20-ish.
20-ish. 20-ish.
I'm gonna go with 20-ish, and then the band. I don't know how many people will be in the band, but it's also that job too, because they have to check in to make sure that the band is here as well as the cast.
Player? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So probably 20 in the cast, and then theatrical side of the crew, maybe another 10 or so, plus and then the technical side of the crew. Just here working at KPC, the audio technician, maybe a couple different audio technicians, because people have wireless mics that they're getting fitted with. Mm-hmm. We have a lighting technician. We have several people here doing obviously front of house and things like that. So I mean, by the end of it, there's 50 some people probably working on it. So many people
working on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So. That's wild. We don't have to go through necessarily every job,
right?
But thank you for educating.
Yeah, there are a lot of jobs.
Thank you for educating me and us on some of this. And what would you say? What is it about theater? Obviously, especially community theater, when you're volunteering your time and working really hard, not for money necessarily. What is it that keeps you coming back to doing theater, and what do you love so much about it? Yeah. Personally.
I just love music. I've always loved music. And so anytime you get a chance to just sing just iconic songs that are just so well written, is just a joy. Yeah. I think honestly though, my favorite part of doing a show is two things. One is the Sitzprobe. Have you heard of Sitzprobe?
No.
So Sitzprobe is it's a German term, which basically means like the first time you put the cast and the band together and you sing through the show with everybody.
Okay.
And it's super exciting because for most of the rehearsal process, we have pianist only. Usually it's the music director playing piano for us. Right. And they're rehearsing the band separately. And there's always like it's called a Sitzprobe because you sit and sing basically.
Very appropriate for this show in German.
But oftentimes you stand. But it doesn't matter. Yeah. The whole point is that it's the first time the cast and the band get to be together and hear each other, and there's just an energy to it that's like, oh wow, we have a show.
Right.
And then the other one is when you actually have like tech rehearsals starting. And there's something I love to just sort of stand on that stage, even when those tech rehearsals can be kind of frustrating because there's a lot of hold. We got to fix the light, right? Hold. Nope,
You're
that's not
waiting for
that's
5
not
minutes
coming in, right?
One person
but
does
I like
something.
to just stand on stage and hold and just think there's so many people and everybody's working on their thing that they love to do, and we're all just doing this because we love it, and we're putting this thing together, and it's just kind of this sense of like, well, community, and that's why we call it community theater. But whether it's community or professional or anything, just the idea of all of these creative people with all these different skills, and we're all aiming towards this one goal of just making this amazing show. And then that opening night energy when you have an audience, because that's that last piece, that there is no show without an audience.
Right.
And to share that joy with them. And when you hear them laughing at a joke or clapping, or the little kids come on stage and they go, oh, you know, or if it's an impactful moment and it's silence and you just know you hit something emotionally. There's nothing better.
You know, that's interesting. You mentioned that with the audience. Do you adjust your performance based on audience feedback or not? You know, I can say, you know, as a musician, I've written songs that, like, you know, I thought this was my hit song or whatever, and then you go out and play and like everyone loves the other song you didn't realize. Are there moments in a show where you're like, you go out there and all of a sudden everyone laughs at something you didn't expect them to laugh at, so then you maybe ham it up is the wrong word, but you kind of you lean into that maybe a little bit more next time.
Yeah, that totally happens. And shows will evolve as they go, and it always feels different with an audience, because you really don't know until you have them what they will laugh at, how long they're going to applaud for something. And so oftentimes it's a little bit of experimenting, because you might say a line fast and then expect to go right on, and then all of a sudden there's laughter and then you can't go right on or else they would miss the next line. So it is a balancing act. Like you said, you don't want to ham it up too much and slow down the show, but at the same time you do have to put in pauses, because they are a participant in the show. The audience they are part of the show. So you have to give them room to be there as well, to let them clap when they want to clap, to let them laugh when they want to laugh, to sit in those impactful moments and feel the energy. And every audience is different. Every audience has a different energy, and that's what keeps it kind of exciting.
Right.
Is because you never really know. You never really know what they're going to laugh at, what they're going to find meaningful, what they're going to... Sometimes they'll applaud at places that no one has ever clapped before, and you go, oh, okay. So
it is very individual, and obviously, like, you know, we're in a roughly 400 seat theater here, but it feels intimate, and everyone feels close. You know, the back row, we always, this is one of our, you know, pitches, our selling points. The back row is only 40 feet from the stage.
Yeah,
you know,
I
so
was thinking that there's no bad seat in this.
There's no bad
venue.
seat. Yeah, absolutely no bad seats in the house. Would you change? I mean, this is going into maybe, you know, just sort of acting 101 maybe a little bit, but sometimes you'll see on TikTok that person who's doing the one line for film, and then they're doing it as a cartoon character, and then they're doing it on a stage.
Right.
Would you do? I mean, if you were playing Maria in, you know, a new 2023 film adaptation, would you play it the same as you would play it on stage? And if not, how is it different for film versus if you were playing it in a 3,000 seat theater? Do you kind of play to the space, and what is that? What are those changes if you make changes in different spaces?
Yeah, definitely. So film acting versus stage acting are actually very different arts. Yeah. The character is the same.
I know you've done some film.
Yeah, I have done some film. Yeah. And so I do both. But it's much smaller on film. Yeah. And a camera, especially when you've got like close angles, just picks up everything. Right. And you'll also often hear from like a film director, like, don't show me, just feel that emotion, and the camera's going to pick it up.
Right.
So if I felt worried on film, I might just be, and if I feel worried on stage, I might be,
right.
Because it's just, it has
to be
exaggerate a little bit. You have to be exaggerated because people can't see you as close up.
Right.
And especially if you're in a bigger venue, like you said, a 3,000,
right.
then it's much more body, it's much more physical acting.
Right.
In a venue like this, like a 300 seat, that it's kind of a good combination of both. So you're going to be a little more physically active than you would be on stage or on film. You have to be very still on film because the camera, you can't move around too much because you get out of frame.
Right.
On stage, you have more freedom than that. But we're in a space where it's big enough that you have some freedom of movement, but they can see your face.
So
and
they're
going to be able to see
things.
Small reactions. Yeah. And so you really just then get to sort of play to the balance of that. And that's also something that the director does. The director will sit in various spots in the space through the rehearsal process to make sure that it's reading for everybody, that the people in the front row can get the sense of it as well as the people in the back row. Everybody's getting that same experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. That makes sense that it's partially the director's job, because an actor may or may not know, you know, from the back of the house how is this coming off. Same thing with someone on camera. which is why, I imagine watching yourself back, which actors famously don't want to do sometimes,
Right. It's good for you, though. It's such good work.
Who was it? I forgot who I was watching. It was like, oh, yeah, I never watch my own work. It seems like sort of a luxury, but maybe that's for big movie stars. They don't even have to watch themselves. But no, I mean, again, in my line of work, doing music, it's great to listen to yourself because you can feel a certain way when you're singing a vocal or when you're playing a part or whatever it is. But then listening to it back, it's like, oh, I guess I didn't sound how I thought I sounded.
It doesn't always.
No, because when you're doing it yourself, you have your own body is resonating with your voice, and you just people hearing their own voice, famously, if you haven't heard it, people will cringe. It's like,
I don't sound like that.
Is that what I sound like?
Right.
But it is good, and I think it's almost a for me, it's even been a almost therapeutic kind of like self-love kind of a thing. Getting to a point where I'm okay hearing my own voice back and going, yeah, that's me, and I'm good with that, kind of a thing. And so, but it does take some kind of very intentional work with going like, oh yeah, like that part was not so good,
Right.
like I can recognize that, but also like I'm not a terrible person and my career's not over.
And that's the big deal, is being able to separate sort of the craft from your identity.
Right.
And this, when I teach music, I do this too. It's like, you have to be able to watch yourself, and watch yourself not as like, I'm watching myself to judge myself, but just sort of notice, be aware of like, oh, hey, my voice didn't do what I wanted it to do there.
Yeah.
And so how do I adjust that? Or, oh, that was not the facial expression I thought I was making. So how do I adjust that? And being able to kind of separate the craft from the identity is really important for a performer, because you have to be able to do both. You have to be able to have this good sense of, you can't let a mistake in your craft destroy your self-esteem, because confidence is a really important part of performing. But then you can't be delusional and think everything you do is amazing when it's not. And so you have to be able to look at it both like objectively and then combine the two and be like, okay, I'm working on this and I can be proud of the work that I'm putting in, even if it's not perfect.
Yeah, I often think of like, what would you tell a friend, a good friend? What feedback would you give that good friend? Give that to yourself, because you wouldn't tell a friend your career's over and you suck and you're terrible.
No,
obviously,
never.
We would never do that, but we do that to ourselves, don't
all
we?
The time.
We do it to ourselves. It's so easy to get down on yourself and that just spin out on that negative self-talk or whatever as artists, and I think, it's worthy of restating, just like, how would you advise you could watch a friend and have some helpful, constructive feedback. You could go, this part wasn't great. They know it wasn't. They already know. Mostly they already know. And so it becomes just this skill, I think, that you develop of being able to kind of step outside that my identity's not this. I can fail at this and I'm still an okay person, or whatever. And what how do I level up? How do I make this better? And I think too, for me, since kind of taking on that mantle of like, I'm an amateur musician, it has really helped me not take it so seriously. Even if I am getting paid to do something, I can only bring my best self to it. You know what I mean? And so as long as I bring that's going to have to be enough for it, and I think learning to be okay with yourself in that sense is important too. As an actor, I mean, it seems like particularly, I would say, I don't know if brutal is too strong of a word. My ex, was an actor, and she, I mean, basically sort of stopped doing it because just the sort of near constant like levels of rejection you would get from, you have to go and keep proving yourself and going out on auditions and things like that. Is there a balance there with you? Like what helps you to, or how do you choose the things that you sort of put yourself out there for, to like, yes, I want to risk being rejected for this role or whatever it is, or how do you compartmentalize that just personally, I guess.
Yeah, it's true, because it's like you have to have an excitement and an energy for the project,
Right.
but then you don't want to, it's like that getting your hopes up and then getting rejected and, oh, I'm terrible. I should never have dreams. Why do I have dreams?
Right.
You know, but
We've all been there,
it's honestly, I think what's helpful is, one, like, give yourself a little bit of time. So if you go audition for something and you don't get a callback, you don't get cast, like, let yourself be upset for it. Like, for that night. Like, give yourself a night. Go take a shower, cry in the shower, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then get up the next day and, like, you did that, okay? You had those emotions and, like...
Yeah.
And you just have to keep going.
Right.
And it can be very scary. This was my first audition pretty much since prior to COVID.
Wow.
So it felt a little rusty.
Been a minute, yeah.
And, I went in and I sang and I felt a little nervous and I kind of went, man, that was kind of okay, but I did it,
Maybe I got it, I don't know.
Right, and then I got a call back and I was like, okay. And everyone was amazing at callbacks. I was like, this is going to be a really good production. And so you just never know.
Sure.
You just never know. And all you can do is, like, prepare and work hard and just try to enjoy the process. And really try to enjoy, at least I get to sing these songs that I like at callbacks. And even if that's as far as I go, like, hey, I was brave and I auditioned after not auditioning for 3 years. And it was a little scary and I didn't know anybody there because I've never done a show there before. And I did it anyway. And it's like finding something to be proud of anyway and going, hey, this is a journey. And that's a step I took, even if you crash. And we've all had bad auditions. I've had auditions that just went terribly. And it happens. But go, you know what, though? Like, it's scary going and singing or acting in front of somebody that you don't know.
Right.
And their whole job is to say yes or no to you.
Yeah, I really like that, making a plan for, like, for both sides. If this goes well, whatever, great, but also making a plan for if it doesn't, I did it. And, I like playing out those scenarios. I really like that. So giving yourself, like, okay, so now it's not the end of the world. It's just a turn in the road. We're going this way. We wanted to go this way, but we got to go this way. But we knew that, and that was a second path. So I went out and auditioned, and you pat yourself on the back and good job, or whatever.
Yeah. There are always going to be things too. It's not like I'm proud of every moment of every performance I've ever had. I have moments that I'm embarrassed that happened, right? We've all had those. We've all had things happen. I've had auditions that weren't great. I've had moments on stage that were, I was like, oh, why couldn't I fix that, But it's like, so it's okay. Just, I guess, allowing yourself to be like, hey, I'm not perfect. I've made some mistakes in life. And that's okay. And there are roles that I wanted that I didn't get. And it's okay that I still kind of go, I'm fine now, but I still wish I would have gotten to do that.
I really wanted that.
Yeah, and it's okay. Like, that's fine. It's fine to be, you don't have to pretend like, oh, I didn't want that anyway. Like, it's okay that you wanted it and didn't get it. Like, that's part of being a human being, is being able to, like, still feel gratitude for our lives, even when things don't always turn out exactly how we want them, because they don't really ever turn out exactly how we thought we wanted them.
Get used to not disappointment, but get used to just not being in control, and especially in these situations where there's no guarantee, because you might do an amazing job, but it might not be the right. You might not be tall enough, or whatever. It's literally things
casting is like that,
or it's the director's friend or their cousin or whatever it is. That's just the reality of kind of the business that we're in, and so. Or they were in a bad mood that day, and whatever. They didn't like the color of your cardigan.
It's usually way less personal than we think.
Right.
It's usually way less personal. It's just
not really about
that
you.
just wasn't quite the vision they had.
Yeah. And they have to be like that, obviously, because, but I think that's the nature of it. But anyway, I have kept you way longer than I said.
That's all right.
But thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting about this. All of you out there, definitely go out and see The Sound of Music here in Kirkland, playing March 3rd through 12th here at KPC. Showtime's available on kpcenter.org. And thanks so much to Rose and to Studio East for co-producing this show along with KPC. I know it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely go out and see it. And hey, if you're not in the area, go out and support whatever local community theater is in your area. Maybe go try out for a show. Maybe go, if you haven't done it in a while, go out and go to multiple performances of a show. Give money to that local theater, because those programs really are amazing for adults and for kids, for people of all ages, established actors, new actors. And so we're so excited to have this community musical back for the first time since COVID. First time we're doing it. And thanks again, Rose, so much for sitting down with me and chatting a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
See y'all next time. Thanks for joining us for KPC Underground. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider supporting KPC at kpcenter.org/donate. Your generosity helps us keep this and other programs going at Kirkland Performance Center. Be sure to check out our website for the latest events coming up. And hey, we'd also love to hear from you. Please rate our podcast, like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And if you have a specific question or an idea for a show, email us at podcast@kpcenter.org. Thanks for listening.